Yeah, I think we are good to start now. Hello, good evening, Toastmasters and guests. This is Prem Nayak, Sergeant of Arms for today's meeting, and I heartily welcome you all to the joint club education session of Area G1. And I will begin with reading the club mission. Toastmasters Club provide a supportive and positive learning experience which members are empowered in developing the communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Going forward, I would like to convey the few ground rules in the meeting that everyone must be aware of. The first point, please put your mobile phones in the silent mode uh, to uphold the service and excellence of the meeting. And second point is, please don't move around or speak while a speaker is speaking, just to give respect to the speaker. Please refrain from talking about sex, religion, politics to maintain integrity of the meeting. Yeah, thank you. And over to you, presiding officer, Toastmaster Gaga. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prem. A very good evening to each and everyone that's present here. It's great that you have attended the meeting Saturday evening where others are enjoying. Thanks for taking time and joining the meeting. In our meeting, we have dignitaries who have attended our meeting. To begin with, we have past program call director of District 98, Mukta Nadkar. Welcome, Mukta. And we have current division director of Division G, Animesh. Welcome, Animesh. Yeah, and I feel my club officers and club members are dignitaries. Welcome each and every member and club officer to the meeting. And welcome you all to the education session of G1. A couple of years back, when I joined Toastmasters, I got many chance to attend the education sessions and learn, but I never attended a session. Do you believe it took me 3 years to complete my communication CC communication competent communicator manual? Just give 10 speeches. I took almost 3 years because I did not have the right. I'm not on the right path to complete all the levels. But slowly I understood the importance and I started understanding. Previously I had knowledge, but the wisdom is missing. Like how I need to articulate. Finally, after few months back, have completed my competent communicator, communicated leadership and advanced leadership branch. Today, you all have taken the chance to learn from the veterans who have much experience. So we are fortunate and congrats to each and everyone who has taken the step to learn, understand from the veterans. With this, without further ado, let me hand over the stage to the host of the meeting, Toastmaster Manish. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Gagan, and it's absolute pleasure to be hosting the meeting today. I love the tempo, the momentum, and the enthusiasm which has been set in the area G1, right? इसने जिंदगी जीवन में जीवन टोस्टमास्टर्स में जीवन डाल दिया है. I'm absolutely happy, thrilled for this particular session. And to do this session, we have two wonderful speakers, two different styles, different personalities, and two eminent people. To start, we'll have the first session by Toastmaster Animesh, and then the second session later by Toastmaster Muktaji. Our first speaker for the day is Toastmaster Animesh. He's been traveling a lot. He's been stayed in 15 cities, traveled across. Has two likes. He loves food and he loves two things. He moved to Hyderabad in the year 2018. He loves biryani and he loves Toastmasters fraternity to enjoy and learn all about from each other. Without further ado, let me invite Toastmaster Animesh to talk to us about a very critical topic, which is Toastmasters and beyond. How do you take pathways, the basic core framework, and use it and take it beyond Toastmasters? Toastmaster Animesh, over to you.
Hello, Manish. Thanks for that amazing introduction. Not for that amazing person though. Thanks for hosting me, yeah, Jeevan. I really like that analogy. Jeevan में जीवन डाल दिया. It's great to be here. I can see a lot of known faces. Hi Virender. Hi Uday. Uday and I were co-area mates under Toastmaster Ramakant, our area director. I have Kasturi in the house. It's great to see you guys. Maithili. Hi Maithili. It's great to know a lot of people apart from the people that I have known. Thank you, Gagan, for inviting me. Thanks for Cyril for arranging this. And let's see where we go. Prior to starting so when I reached out to Cyril, when I had a conversation with Gagan, with Manish, everyone has a thought around how Toastmasters and how pathways would benefit them, how the thought process around it. While we are addressing it, if anyone would try to type in any sort of suggestions, or you can tell me what their expectation from this session is, I would be happy to also address the same with the best capability that I have. So any foregoing thoughts around, okay, what do you want to get out of this session today?
Uncle. Coming.
Okay, if anything else, please post in the chat and we'll address it. In the meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead with, so when I reached out to Cyril, he asked me, it will be very essential for us to understand how we can take the learnings of Toastmasters and pathways essentially into our real life, go beyond the Toastmasters forum itself and carry that learning ahead. Now, a couple of introductions about me. I was apparently the first person to be finishing a path in the EFGHM scenario. Now, when I say that, it typically means this was pre online times, and the challenge that I had was doing it first. And I'm pretty sure Mukta would also resonate with that thought, because as she was the first person to be the first Pathways DTM in-house, it was initially a challenge in order to understand the concept, what it means to get mentored and to approach a concept like that. I, however, was very shameless. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. But I thought going onto the stage and taking this ability to go onto the stage and speak about something means I gave a great speech. That in turn became the first learning for me. In a sense, I did not know what a communicator is essentially supposed to do. The reason I'm hitting on this process is it takes a lot of amount of courage to go onto the stage and speak and hold this talk in your mind. The second thought I would ask you to hold on to is I want all of you to imagine the worst possible tutor, lecturer, boss, the friend who you don't like to listen to. And I want you to imagine that person and him conversing, right? Can you picturize that person? Like, it never makes sense. That lecturer whose class you never enjoyed at all. Can you picturize that person? Well, if you are, then you are rightly at the place where my audience used to be when I started the journey. The reason why we miss out on communication, and not only with pathways, is we need to understand that what is the job of a communicator. Now, the job of a communicator is essentially to share the idea which is present in his head to the audience's head. Now, the reason why we ended up missing out or not understanding our lecturers way back at that point of time was perhaps one of these three reasons. Either we didn't know what he's saying, either we knew what he's saying, but it didn't make sense, or it made sense, but we didn't agree to it. Why? Because we did not see the benefit out of it. More importantly, the last question, we didn't know what to do once the lecture is over. Well, fellow leaders in the house, That is what typically the job of a communicator is. These are typical learnings that help us become a better communicator. Zoom master, I'm not sure if there is a another speaker in. I think there's a clash in the audio. Perfect, thanks. So that is the precise thing. You see, as a communicator, the first thing that we need to address is understand. Okay, thanks. I think I got muted also. So what the typical situation here is, we as communicators need to understand what we want our audience to do at the end of our speech or our communication. Now, speech typically doesn't mean a speech per se. It means communication. It can be a WhatsApp message. It can be an elevator pitch. It can be even a poster, because it's a form of communication. So the major role of a communicator is to transfer the idea from your head to the other person while ensuring you address the specific purpose in place. Right? And that is where one of our lecturers used to fail. We didn't know what is calculus, or calculus did not make sense. Last but not the least, we did not agree that calculus is important for us. Or even if we knew entirely, we didn't know what are we supposed to do with this calculus in our life. Definitely there's use, we didn't know this. So that was the first learning I would like to highlight, that be it pathways or non-pathways or a simple text to ask a girl out, make sure in your head that you address this question: what do I want my audience to do at the end of my speech? That is essentially what the specific purpose is. Now, why am I highlighting this? Why? Because for the first initial part that I did, I gave each and every speech without a specific purpose. Because I thought going onto this stage and talking my heart out will mean that I'm a confident communicator. I used to speak. I was a speaker, not a communicator. That's an essential learning I thought needs to be highlighted. The second reason I would draw an analogy over here, most of us are working professionals and might be able to relate to this. The first question gets addressed is, what do we want our audience to do at the end of our speech? There remains the remaining three questions. You see, the remaining three questions answer the questions about opening body and conclusion. What is he talking about means an answer to the question, the opening of the speech. The speaker achieves the opening when the audience knows the answer to the question, कहना क्या चाहता है? The speaker achieves his body, an effective body, when the audience gets the answer to the question, yes, he makes sense. And last but not the least, the speaker achieves the conclusion when the audience agrees, yes, I buy this idea. So that is the precise learning I had in the first time I was doing pathways, through a lot of struggles, getting evaluated in every other club, and knowing that I'm doing something wrong, but hoping to make it right. And that is where the first address comes over here in this sense, that whenever we are communicating beyond pathways, beyond Toastmasters, experiment these learnings in pathways while achieving the specific purpose, achieving an opening body conclusion, achieving an effective communication. But make sure that even when you're off stage, your communications have a purpose. Okay. This brings to the second address or second thought I had, which is the only place you will be able to experience or experiment this is Toastmasters. But prior to that, it is essential for all of us to have this idea of getting mentored. So what Pathways taught me through mentoring was an ear to listen to, was an ability to appreciate and find the purpose of someone else's communication, guide it, address it, and last but not the least, work on becoming an effective communicator. There are two folds to this, a journey as a mentee and a journey as a mentor. Now, as a journey as a mentee, I was more prone to that idea about, I want to speak about this, how do I say it? Where the learning came that you do not speak for yourself. You speak because your audience wants to listen to you. You speak because you're speaking to an audience. Keep your audience in mind. For traditional track members, CC2 would make a lot of sense, know your audience. However, apart from the throwback to that time, it is essential for us to keep the audience in mind. That is where my mentor later on, who Toastmaster Joy, Toastmaster Ramakant, they had all pitched in to highlight this idea about speak to your audience. This is only in pathways though. How do we take it to real life? It makes us essential to understand what our audience's expectations are. It makes us a better listener through the path to observe and orient ourselves to a different scenario. Well, as a mentor, what learning did I have? It is essential to become mentors also through pathways. Why? Because initially you can have only one idea. But if you have a group of 4 to 5 mentees, every day they are discussing a new idea with you. Well, in a week's time, you have 5 new ideas to ponder upon. Hence, it is very essential to have a community that you can also guide and learn in turn. The best metaphor and analogy that I have for a mentoring program in Pathways would be like a gym. You see, a mentor is a person who joins the gym 3 months before you. You know where the weights are, you know how to lift them, but you are not in a shape. You need a spotter along with you to help you out in this journey. So the mentor and mentee work through this process and benefit mutually amongst us. Now, this is again in Pathways. How do we take it beyond Toastmasters? If you are a team lead, it is essential for you to listen to your audience and redirect their energies. If you are the head of the family, it is essential for you to guide your members, guide your family members, listen to them, understand what their expectations are and to meet them. Last but not the least, it definitely makes you a better human being to see the benefits of your efforts 2 to 3 years down the line. Why? Because the member today will be a leader tomorrow. So it helps you, it keeps you in check, it keeps you in practice about what you want to do. Which brings me to my third major learning in life, in Toastmasters journey at least. Now, initially, when I realized that I was the first person to finish the pathways and all, I had the privilege, okay, fine, I know this. But trust me, every time I would go onto the stage, I would be scared because I only had the certificate to prove it. I did not have the learning to prove it. Which brings me to this idea. Every time we take up a stage, make sure that you are making sense. Make sure that you are a credible speaker. You can go on stage many times, fail there, fall there, but make sure that your each and every idea that you're propagating is reaching out to your audience. That's where the mentoring also comes into picture, but it's essential for us to be true to our learnings. Why is this an important thought? Now, initially, I used to think that, yeah, I became the first person to finish Pathways. Maybe I'll become the youngest DTM. Who knows? I'll get a lot of credit and all. There's a lot of aspirations around it. It definitely makes sense. I can see Mukta smiling around it with the comment in the sign 4 times DTM2. But it truly is a sense. You see, whenever there is a person who is a DTM, like Mukta actually has done it 4 times, there is a sense of expectations attached to it. But we'll leave that for aside. We will focus on the journey per se. You see, every time we speak, let's say the one I'm addressing right now, it is the expectation of a speaker to share that idea. In order to become DTM, you roughly have 40 chances to go onto the stage and share your ideas. Even in traditional as well as in pathways, maybe more so in pathways. So it takes 40 odd. So a typical Toastmaster on the journey to become a DTM has 40 chances to change the world one speech at a time. Toastmaster Mukta has done it 160 times. But by that math, as a DTM, when you're going in that direction, make sure that each and every speech is redirected to that idea, what I want my audience to do. For example, I want my audience to donate organs to make the world a better place. One speech dedicated to it, with 10 members agreeing to it, would generate 10 leaders, 10 followers, 10 supporters of that idea. In the next speech, when my credibility increases, maybe 20 more people come to listen to me. That point of time, the question that I address is, don't honk on the road. The specific purpose being, I don't want my audience to honk in the middle of the street. 20 more people listen to it, 20 more people propagate the idea. Which means, when you become a DTM or when you call yourself one, you would have had 40 chances to change the world. All of us are on a journey towards that. I'm not saying that's the end goal. I'm just saying it's a journey towards that direction. So why not make it more meaningful? The only way we can make it meaningful is by addressing the fact that take the stage when you want to do the justice to the story, to that idea. This is in again pathways. How do we take it beyond Toastmasters? Well, this is true for everything. When we're talking about integrity, respect, service, excellence, these values are imbibed into the way of life that we talk about. If we have the integrity to take the stage when we want to take it, which means we respect our audience enough not to waste their time. We are serving the bigger solution of changing the world as leaders too. Nothing can be more excellent than this. Right? Now, if you are a family member, if you are a newly married guy like Gagan, every time you speak Gagan, you have 40 chances to make your point straight. It is essential for you to think in that direction, for all of us to think in that direction. Now, these were the major learnings that I had around pathways, but the last learning I would actually share, a real life story, a similar situation that happened in my life. What did I learn through this journey? Now, as Manish was glad enough to introduce me about a person who has changed 16 cities, it's a boon as well as a bane. In a sense, I can break ice very easily, but I do not make meaningful relations for the long term because my highs are more meaningful than the goodbyes. Every 2 or 3 years, you change your base and you're gone, right? So what did I do? I became associated with this path called strategic relationships. Now, this path gave me an opportunity to make meaningful, long-lasting, tangible relationships. This path initially inherently taught me, threw me into scenarios, attend a networking event, come up with an elevator pitch. And these ideas made me more open to that idea of talking to people, interacting with them, being vulnerable with them. Prior to this, when I did not used to give any thought about what people think about me, now my actions are dedicated about what my learnings were. Which brings me to the last underlining point. Pathways is a skill-oriented discussion. In a sense, every speech, every project in Pathways actually has 2 modules in it. If you see an evaluation sheet, it says the objective of the project, and then you have objectives of the speech. The objectives of the project unlock a life skill within you, which means now Toastmaster Cyril, while understanding your leadership style, would know he is a diplomatic leader. Toastmaster Gagan would know he's an inclusive leader. It unlocks the skill of you knowing yourself as a leader. Evaluation and feedback unlocks the potential for you to take a feedback. Time management unlocks the skill within you to come up with a methodology on observing where you waste time and reducing that. It's a skill-oriented discussion, the project objectives. The speech objectives, however, is what we just discussed right now. So pathways in this direction will inherently make you a better individual. Now, all of us are leaders here, and I hope we all agree that a leader is a conglomeration of many qualities. A great time manager, a democratic leader, inherently good speaker, a mentor, a person who can come up with an elevator pitch. Well, these are all the qualities which makes a leader. And all of these qualities are individually highlighted in each and every project in Pathways. So go for the project-oriented approach. Attempt the project, take the learning, become a better version of yourselves. Well, the speech, change the world, one speech at a time. With that, I'll hand it back to the host and open to Q&A if we have time for the same.
Okay.
Any questions, Manish,
Any questions?
from anyone? Yeah.
No, I don't see any questions right now. But let's open. Can we all switch on the videos, please? Come on. Uday Kiran Sodima. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question to Animesh. Animesh, I just completed my level 2 in pathways and it's innovative planning. So one thing that I have observed is that pursuing a project as per you, how important it is not only to a speaker but also to an evaluator? If you are an evaluator
I
going
think
to
I
evaluate
just
first, how
logged
would
off.
you approach?
They can repeat the question. I think I just lost you.
Okay, so my question is, if you are an
Hello.
evaluator, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah. You're
Okay.
audible.
So, Animesh, my question is, if you are an evaluator going to evaluate a speaker who is going to have pursue a project from Pathways, what is your approach? I I didn't think that my question would be that difficult for him. He had to go back and refer the chat.
You ask deadly questions, Uday. Hence, all of us are very scared of your questions.
I don't think so.
You 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 made
But
me. You made my first speaker abscond. Come on.
so if for the time being, I think Mukta can answer this question. I think we lost him.
Yeah, we lost him. Mukta, wait. Mukta, wait. We don't. Not now.
Okay.
Okay, he's come back. Uday, careful. Can you soften it, please?
Okay, this was so bad. I just lost my power every time Uday speaks.
No. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, we can understand. So my question, may I request you humbly, please do answer this question. My question is, sir, if you are an evaluator to a humble speaker who is going to pursue a project from humble pathways, what would be your approach?
Perfect, Uday. Thanks for the so much humility and humbleness. I don't even know whether that's the right word, but okay. So this is a great. It was a point of debate for me and a couple of Toastmasters some months or years, a couple of years back, and we reached a very good clarity. Now, not to take or put up a spotlight onto the clubs, but in Hyderabad fraternity, we have four great clubs called the TCS, big four TCS clubs. Now, if you are lucky or unlucky enough to the test speaker for any one of them, you would have to go through an evaluation of 17 of 18 Toastmasters. I was one of those people at one point of time. Why am I highlighting this is, as a speaker, each and every evaluator's perspective would be different. One speaker told me I have amazing vocal variety, and the other one said that you have no vocal variety at all. True instance. That is where this thought came in. So in this Toastmaster journey, you have three people involved in this entire journey. You have your mentor to guide you, and you have an evaluator to help you process this evaluation. The major problem in this approach, what we were discussing was, we usually think it is the job of the evaluator to fix the speaker. It's the job of the evaluator to address that speaker is wrong here or right here. Inherently, what we should ideally understand is the evaluator is only looking at me for that instant. It is not looking at my exponential growth. He is not looking at the bigger picture. So here is where the beautiful thought comes in. The job of an evaluator is not to fix the speaker, is to provide suggestions, but the evaluator actually is there to practice his habit of, or his art giving feedback. You can take all these feedback, reach out to your mentor, tell that I want to work on this, that, and that's where the growth happens. But the job of the evaluator is to give you a feedback, is for the evaluator to practice his or her feedback giving abilities, so that he does not sound rude when he goes into the real world. That is why it is requested for the speaker never to thank at the end of the speech, but the evaluator always to thank the speaker. Thank you for being my punching bag today, because I'm practicing on you. So that is my take on it. Now, if someone wants to, now that was the thought about evaluation, but to specifically answer Uday, how do you want someone to address the evaluation? Well, there are, apart from the project objectives, there's a speech objectives, and then there is the basic speech craft about whether the person has specific purpose, opening, body, conclusion. Once these four questions are, let's say, in content-wise addressed, you can see whether the project objectives are addressed or not. There is a project objective, the time management. The project objective is for the member to come up with a time management methodology, but the speech objectives are the speaker should come up with a well crafted, well organized speech. So for this, the evaluation aspect will be restricted to the thought of opening body conclusion and the specific purpose and what we have. Even in level 1 project 3, there's a project called research and presentation. Now we as Toastmasters eventually end up confusing that with the CC7 that we used to have. It needs to have a source and whatnot. But ideally, the project objective is for the member to come up with a research methodology. How do you do research? For example, where can I get camel's meat? I'm not saying buy it, I'm just saying this. If I had to research, I would go through research sources and whatnot. However, if I'm giving a speech, it doesn't mean that I have to quote my text. It doesn't mean that I have to tell that this is the research I did according to the Webster's. No, it's just I have to have the methodology. The speech objectives come up with a well-organized speech, not a research speech. So that was my hope. I humbly addressed the question of humble.
Yeah, you are right back on it. So even that is what my observation is also, like it is more important for the evaluator also to go through the total project list, not only to the speaker. That is what we are missing.
Yeah.
And most of the times evaluators coming up with an evaluation based on the 2 lines of objectives and making it very generic.
You are right. I can also reiterate this in one more instance. There is something called in level 4, come up with a compelling blog. Now, blog is another form of communication which a lot of people should do. It gives structure to your thoughts and you become effective communicators there. But the idea there is, if I cannot speak on the stage about my blog, does it make I'm a bad communicator? No. It just means that it was a bad speech, or perhaps it needs some improvement. But it will be very difficult for the evaluator to evaluate my speech about blog without even reading my blog. So that's a very bigger picture around it. And thanks, Uday, to bring this up. You are very right and apt in saying that the evaluator and the speaker also need to do some 1 or 2 days of homework with each other.
Yeah, good. Thanks for that answer. Over to you, Manish.
Okay, thank you very much for that interesting question and a very detailed answer, Animesh. Amazing. Any more questions for our speaker, please? Okay, I don't see any hands coming up, but I have one question for you, Animesh.
Sure, Manish.
Okay. Now, how do you connect, okay, with whatever you're learning in Toastmasters with your professional life? Can you share 1 or 2 instances?
Sure, Manish. I was hoping you would actually ask this question in this scenario. I'll tell you something. Okay, I'm a fresher out of college in the year 2018. Now, many of us might be aware that the fresher's life is not a healthy one. So what ended up happening is, as a fresher, you'll slog hours. You want to prove yourself to the world. Yes, I did B.Tech, and that was my life as it was. Luckily, I got the G1 of Toastmasters. Now, here's a beautiful thought. My then project manager, who shall remain nameless, was we were trying to execute a project. Now, the challenge with this was we were technically sound. We were technically very sound. We were developing everything. And keep in mind that this is where the Toastmasters does come in. We were technically sound. We were executing everything. Came the day of giving a demo, right? And we had a week's plan about this is what we are going to do and this is how we are going to deliver it. Day 1, Monday, my manager, who shall still remain nameless, was working on and trying to deliver doing the client interaction. But the client, being a demanding client, like every clients are, they had stopped my manager at each and every 5 seconds, saying that, no, what is this? What is this about? What does this mean? And how do we address this? No, this is not what we agreed on. This is not supposed to be pink in color. And why is material visible in the screen? We should change the icon and whatnot. This was the entire discussion, right? And I was like, how do I deal? First of all, fresher. I do not have experience. Secondly, they are trusting me to do this on Wednesday. Tuesday, same thing repeated. Well, on Wednesday, I took the help of Toastmasters, strategic relationship, time management module. There is a document available where you can document and create an agenda, which is something that we all do also in our clubs as secretaries. Before the meeting, I had published the agenda that we are going to start at 9. 9:30. We are going to lay down the ground rules at 9:35. Address or do the demo till 9:50, and then open up for Q&A for next 20 minutes and whatnot. Came the day of demo. I opened the meeting like every Toastmaster meeting actually opens. Well, welcome fellow leaders or the client members. Today in house we have the CTO, we have a project manager. I'm going to demonstrate this. Today's agenda is this. We are going to do this. The moment I started demonstrating, the questions came in, and thanks to Toastmasters learning and growth, I was able to dodge the ball, saying that very valid question, Cyril. I'm pretty sure I will address it at the end of the session, but let's stick to the agenda as published. Trust me, I'm going to take care of it. And the moment it happened, we went through the timeline, and mine was the first object that went through. What I mean in this direction is time management module came in, right? The agenda and the learnings of Toastmasters came in. The thought process around the TI came in to deliver a professional object in a professional way in front of professional clients, right? And not like it made a life of a fresher way easier. That became the standard process for the next 2 weeks of demos and whatnot. So it helps. So I also had actually written, Manish, thanks you had asked, I'd written the fact about creating an agenda. An agenda is essential. Not only that, I'm pretty happy with the way Toastmasters, Cyril and Gagan are doing the PR in their for the respective area. Now, if anyone is interested or involved into that kind of an implementation, you start observing a lot of things. Now, when I became a VPPR for my club, I now follow the brand guidelines of my company also, which means I'm the go-to person to execute and do a technical demonstration or do a sales pitch in front of clients as a fresher. Why? Because I understand their concept. So making a sales pitch, coming with an elevator pitch helps there, along with the VPPR training that I had got. So it always comes around. Hope that answers the question, Manish, I'm sure.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the wonderful insights. And I'm definitely very, very sure that all those 31 of us in this meeting will have a lot of takeaways from your inputs. Thank you very much. And with this, can we move to the next speaker, please? Let me introduce the next speaker. I can tell you one thing. I've seen a lot of people wherein what you see is only the tip of the iceberg. What you see above the water is only the tip of the iceberg. There's a huge iceberg below the water which is supporting the iceberg above. Some people really have a lot of depth, and which is never ever seen till the time you don't scratch the surface. Our next speaker started with Toastmasters journey in the year 1992, and I'm definitely sure a lot of people wouldn't have been born at that point of time. She started her journey in Saudi Arabia, where she was a member of 3 clubs. Only thing which everybody here knows about is that the speaker has completed 4 DTMs. But I know the fact that there's a lot of depth in what a person speaks, and the experience speaks for itself. Wish you all the best. Let me take the pleasure of introducing the past PQD, Program Quality Director of District 98, well recognized by the president of Toastmasters recently, Toastmaster Mukta. Toastmaster Mukta, over to you. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Manish. I don't know about the tip of the iceberg. It makes it sound as though now my head is like the tip of the iceberg and you can't see what is below. So I hope it's not too heavy what is below and sitting on this seat. But with jokes apart, thank you for that very nice introduction. All right. So, friends, I am going to take on from where Animesh left off. He spoke so much about communication, being on stage, connecting with the audience, and it really fits in very well with what my topic is about storytelling. So, storytelling is communication, okay? But there are going to be slight differences between what communication and speech is and what storytelling is. Because in storytelling, which is my love, there's a lot more passion, a lot more of emotion. And I am going to demonstrate one such speech at the end. And then you can decide, is this the story I want to tell? Stories have been told for centuries, okay? Every time you tell a child, come on, I want to tell you a bedtime story, they will not go to sleep without you telling them a story. When you were young and your grandparents came over, you always wanted those stories to be told. And young or old, we always cling on to stories. Even today, I love reading books, I love reading stories, I love reading about people, because stories are all about people. It's not about objects, it's not about nature, it's about you and me. And today, at the end of this session, I want you to go and take away with you that I am going to tell a story every time. Every time I speak, I'm going to include a little bit about me. Because when you include a little bit about yourself, that is what is going to tie you to that audience. That is what is going to make it real. And that is what is going to make that connect, like Animesh said, between you standing on the stage and that audience sitting in front of you. So let's begin this session on storytelling. So why do we typically tell stories? Okay, so Manish, let's have that presentation going on, please. And we'll go through it really quickly. So today I chose a little colorful slide for the storytelling presentations. I've not been so bold before, but since it's my first presentation on storytelling, I thought I would also try and be innovative. Okay, so let's go on to that first slide. Why tell a story? Okay, so now there are certain reasons why we tell a story. We just don't come out and tell a story because we want to. First of all, when you meet at a party, when you go somewhere else and you want to entertain people and you say, hey, listen, you know, this is what happened yesterday. So your first reason for telling a story is to entertain. Manish, we'll go a little fast with the reasons, okay? So this is the second is telling news. When you look at a news channel and they tell you about the riots that happened, the Hurricane Laura that has been so devastating to Louisiana and to Texas, have somebody tell me a story rather than me have to read it. So maybe now I'm getting a little hooked onto audiobooks because I love to listen to it and imagine it. Sometimes my eyes hurt and I don't like to read. So audiobooks are a good way of understanding stories from literature. Family history, I already give you the example. Your grandfather comes home and says, you know, your great-great-grandfather was a real a real warrior. He fought in the First World War. And that is what excites you. That is what binds you to your family, to hear the stories that they have done, to hear about compassionate things that they have done, social service that they have done, hardships that they have undergone. So when you hear of your father saying, "Here, Animesh, you are sitting in such a lovely apartment and you've got a great job, but do you know what we went through? I had no water in my house for the first 7 years of my marriage. I had to carry buckets of water from downstairs because I lived on the first floor." When you tell your children your stories, they have such a better understanding of life and an appreciation of your life. So when you tell family stories, there is a connect. Learning life lessons. That is such an important thing when you tell a story. We've read the Panchatantra, we've read Aesop's fables, we've read stories about the hare and the tortoise and about how, you know, when the hare goes to sleep, the tortoise makes its way. We've heard about the cat and the mice and who will bell the cat. And these are lessons. We have these ideas. We are always telling people, you know, do this, do this. But who? These are wonderful things to do, but who exactly is going to do it? Those are the lessons we get from the stories we read and we learn. The next one, please, is the next. Yes, insight into human nature. Stories tell us what kind of people there are in this world. When you hear or you read about Anne Frank's diaries, the little girl, the little Jewish girl who stayed in a home in Holland and locked herself in for 2 years, the devastation that she went to, the courage that she had. And when you hear stories like this, you really understand human nature and you believe in it and you want to emulate it. And the good things you want to capture and the not so good things you say, that is something I do not want to do. And you want to discard it. So learning about human nature through stories is very important. And the last but not least is the human connection and the emotion that we do. If you do not tell a story with feeling, with emotion, you have lost your audience. Why would they want to listen to you if there is no connection, if they are not feeling what you want to tell them? That is what Animesh said. When you give your speech, it is not about completing a project. It is about you being there and wanting the others to feel that they are getting something from you. So storytelling helps you to build these skills much better than just a regular speech. Let's go to the next slide where we say, how are we going to create a story? And when you create a story, what are 3 basic things that you will look at? One is you will think of your audience. Again, it's the same as what our last speaker told us. Think of your audience. You are a great you're talented in the oil and gas industry, okay? And you come to a group of Toastmasters who knows nothing about oil and gas. And you ramble on about, I lived in Saudi Arabia and I went to these drilling rigs. Who the hell cares where you went? Does your story connect with the audience in this COVID situation? Is that what they want to hear? Of course not. It might be a slight distraction for a few, but that is not what connects you with the audience. You go to a group of little children and you want to inspire them to make their beds in the morning, to help their mummies with a little work. What is the topic that you are going to choose to talk to those children? So think of your audience first and then think about the subject. What is the most appropriate thing to talk about? Is it a group of students that you are going to talk about history? Are you going to talk about your friends and what they have achieved? Are you going to talk about your family, work, hobbies, vacations? What is the appropriate subject to choose? So friends, When you stand up to tell a story, think, who am I talking to you? Who am I talking to? And what subject is going to make me happy? Something that I know about and something that will connect with the audience. So your subject and your audience need to be in sync. Once you have done it, then we can go about designing a speech. Next, please. So every good story. Now we know the audience, now we know the subject. Now what are the 3 criteria that a good story should have? Simple. Very, very simple. Don't use jargon. Don't think that if you know words from the dictionary and you use elaborate, fancy words, that is going to impress your audience. No, if they lose everything that you have said, what sense does it make in even telling a story? So say it in simple language. Say it in language which will connect. Use short sentences so that they get the full impact of your story. Keep it simple. Keep it short. Now the reason I put keep it short over here is in relevance or in relation to our Toastmaster speech projects, where we do 4 to 6 minutes, 5 to 7, 8 to 10 minute speeches. And that's why I said keep it short. But it doesn't mean that if you have an opportunity to speak at a big gathering and you are given 30 minutes, that you have something which you finish off in 5 to 10 minutes. Obviously not. You will then either use a whole bunch of stories to link to each other, or you will have one long story. And then, of course, Animesh again, over and over again, he said how important it is to have an introduction which is going to capture you, which is going to captivate you. If you lose the audience in your introduction, believe you me, you've lost them completely. If you lose the audience in your introduction, they are going to be on their phones, they're going to be chatting, and they have lost you. Hook them in that introduction and you have got them for the rest of your speech. So have a good structure, have a solid body, and a conclusion which is memorable for them to leave with. So these are the 3 elements of a good story. Now, we will come to a little more detailing in what your story should have. And at this point, I would like you, let's go on. The opening body and conclusion is just what we spoke about in structure. Now, there are 6 main points in a story. Your plot. What is your plot should be able to be defined in 1 line or literally in a few words. Is your plot an accident? Is your plot about a vacation? Is your plot about a visit that your grandparents have made to your place? Plot doesn't mean something that you cannot imagine. A plot is the basic theme of your speech. What is the main plot? So if your plot is about an accident, then everything you write about your story is going to revolve around the plot. So get that plot right, because if you don't get the plot right, it's just going to be a big jumble and a mess, and it's not going to mean anything. The next thing is the setting. Whenever you have a plot, give it a place. Now remember, in a story, you are creating images in people's minds. If you don't have an image, oh, this place, this plot is about an accident and it happened on a lonely stretch of road that was winding near a riverside. So people have already begun to create in their mind setting. And this is not a film, this is not a book, this is a story which you are telling. So the more clear you are about the setting, the quicker it is going to enter the people's mind. They don't have time to reread the book. They don't have time to rewind the movie and see it again. So what you say about the plot and the setting and the exact specific location, is it in a dark house? Is it in the jungle? Is it in a wooded place? Is it in a bright metropolitan city on a busy street? Create that setting very clearly. Next, please. The characters. We as people are, now this is, like I said, we are not reading a book. We're not reading the 7 volumes of Harry Potter, where we have so many characters. And we cannot remember all the characters in Harry Potter if somebody was talking about it in a speech, it would just be too complex. It would just be confusing. Therefore, keep your characters, the main characters, to 2 or 3. So even if you have other characters in the periphery, they are not going to be important enough and you don't need to focus on them. They are just supporting actors. But keep your main characters to just 2 or 3 so people can understand it better. Now comes the conflict. What happened in that plot? You were supposed to go on this vacation. You were supposed to go on this trip. I was up in the mountains. I had left my son at boarding school in Sanar in the Himachal Pradesh hills in Kasoli. And I was coming down and I was very upset that I had left my son over there. And then when our car was going from Himachal on to Delhi, the car suddenly had an accident, a huge accident. And we knocked a woman on that road and we hit her till she actually flew and fell. And it was in the time when there was a huge Sikh revolution. And all the Sikhs came out from the village onto their road with kirpans and they wanted to kill us. That was the conflict. Otherwise, my story was just a simple story of taking my son to boarding school, leaving him up in the hills and going back home. But in that story, there is a conflict. And this is where we are going to add the excitement of something going a little different, going wrong. And when that conflict happens, we have to find out what are the next actions that are going to happen and how do we proceed and how do we resolve that conflict. So the next thing is the action. And so talking about the same story, the action was that our car was surrounded and there was just this girlfriend of mine and me, just the 2 of us who had gone up to the hills. And we were scared. We held each other's hands. We were cold. We were sweating because these people wanted to kill us. They wanted life for life. And just then, an elderly man from the village came by. And he parted the entire crowd and said that the woman who had been hit was safe. And therefore, we should be allowed to go. So all this conversation, this action, this feeling of fear of what is going to happen and the next step forward, that is the action where you are going to keep your audience spellbound with your story. And then you find that you are let off. You carry on further. You are just unable to contain that shock you are in. So you stop by and have a hot cup of tea just to relieve you. You get out of this conflict. You have found a resolution to it. And that is the climax of your story. Where if the climax is when you are let go because an old man comes and says, everybody disperse. So a good story, as I am telling you things, you can understand how you go from plot, setting, characters, conflict, action to a climax. And finally, you have description and dialogue. In every part of the story, in all the 6 points which we have, you have to have description and you have to include dialogue. So when this old man came and he said to that leader, put down your kirpan, there is conversation. You can imagine an elderly man telling this unruly crowd to do it. There is description. You talk about the long robes they are wearing, the turbans they have, the kadas which are gleaming in the sunlight, the kirpan which is hanging from the waist. These are the descriptions. But remember, there is one thing about description which is deceptive. A lot of people add description which has got nothing to do with that main story. So if you are going on this road and you're driving to Delhi and you suddenly start talking about the beautiful fields and the farmer who's plowing his lands and things, what has that got to do with the main plot? So description does not mean taking away from the plot. Description means adding to that story and the main plot. So please remember, description should be in connection with your main theme and your main plot. It should not divert your interest from the main story. And dialogue should be just a little bit, but interesting, just to break the monotony of just talking in a flat monotone. Next, please. Now we come to writing the story. Now we know all the elements of a story, and now we are going to come to see how do we pick up our pen and write the story. Now we've got the main idea. I told you about the plot, and that is your main idea. So everybody, if you've got pen and paper with you close by, then just write one main idea of a story you want to tell. Is it going to be the 9/11 scene when the towers, the World Trade Center towers were broken? Is that your idea of a bombing? Or is it going to be just a happy family vacation? What is your main idea? You think of an idea and just put down one word, one or two words as your main idea. Next, please. Now we are going to create an outline, okay? Now in this outline, which is going to be leading to our introduction, we're going to think in our outline, what is the date or what is the time of year it happened? Did it happen in the summer? Did it happen in the winter? Did it happen in the morning, night, afternoon? What was the time of the day? So we are going to create an outline of the setting, and then we are going to say that we'll have these few characters in it, and this is how we would like to end it. So we have an opening. Just carry on, please, keep rolling. And now we are establishing the setting, because we have decided that we are talking about the bombing and we're going to talk about New York City. So our thing is in the middle of the day in New York City. We're going to talk about 2 or 3 main characters, and we have established the time. Now, if we stop here, I will tell you a little story at this point. Now, in my main idea, I'm going to talk about 9/11. That is my main idea. In my mind, I'm creating a story of what exactly could have happened in those few minutes. In my opening, I am going to talk about the first tower coming down and crashing. And if you open that you were sitting on the 80th floor of Tower 2 of the World Trade Center, and out of that window, you saw Tower 1 crashing. That is your opening. You have created such an impact with the audience. They are waiting to hear your story. You have created the setting. You have established the time of the day. Now your characters. Here I would like to tell you about a friend of mine who was in Tower 2 of the World Trade Center on that horrific day. And when the first tower went down, she and her colleagues were told to sit still in their place. There was an announcement, do not move, do not leave your office. And my friend, Vera Johnson, she was a past international director at Toastmasters International. She was on the 40th or 45th floor of Tower 2. She paid no heed to that security announcement. And she told everybody in the office, let's use the stairwell and go down. Because they did not ever believe that Tower 2 would be struck and also collapse. And she took her entire office and they went down that staircase, 45 floors, and got onto the street and out of the vicinity of Tower 2. And Tower 2 went down. So here there was just literally one character and her boss or whoever the security of that building who is constantly relaying these messages. Do not leave your office, but stay where you are. So you have the time, you have the situation, the gravity, the conflict. The conflict is actually the bombing of the two towers. And the next is, you've got the state, the problem, or the conflict, which is the bombing, and what is the list of events which culminates into the climax. The list is she telling her colleagues that we need to leave. You can describe the rush and the people literally jumping over each other down the stairs. You can write it in any which way you want. And finally, the climax is getting to safety. Now, how you put it in words and how you write the dialogues and how you write the description is up to your ingenuity, up to your own creativity. But this is what a story is about, that you stick to the main point. You do not digress, you do not divert from what you want to say. Next, please. And then finally, you have the conclusion. There is one more slide before that. Yeah, and finally, you have the conclusion in the previous slide, please, previous, where you talk about the impact, the message, or the takeaway that you want to give from your story. Here, my takeaway was just absolute, the courage of this woman, what she felt for her colleagues, and how she really saved her life. And I don't think her colleagues will ever forget her for the rest of their lives, or ever forget that incident. So finally, we come that we have written our story and now we need to deliver it. Because writing a beautiful story is many people's cup of tea. But how they deliver it could make it or ruin it. So for your delivery, you need to prepare. Preparation is key in any sort of delivery. And you definitely need to learn your introduction spot on and your conclusion, because that impact and hooking your audience and the conclusion and ending it in such a way that they will never forget your story must be remembered. In between your body, you can tweak it because you have rehearsed it so many times. It doesn't matter if you don't have the exact words in your body. But please remember, every speech, and especially a story, get it right in your introduction and conclusion. Facial expression. How would you ever want a person to stand with a statue-like face over there and tell you a story? Of course not. You would want every eye contact. You want the smile, you want the sadness, you want the frowns, you want the feeling of that story, and you want that animation to make you feel alive and to be a part of it. You want people to say, hey, just don't stop. I want to listen to you more. So facial expression is very important, but don't overdo it. Don't go all over the place, sliding and slipping and things, because that is not natural. So be animated, be real, be energetic, but be natural. And finally, your voice. The best storytellers are the ones who train their voices to be the best. Sometimes you hear stories where you don't even see the person, like on the radio. but the voice is so wonderful that you could keep on listening to it. And that's what audiobooks are all about. The tempo, how fast you go, how quickly you speak is important. You drag a story and again you have lost your audience. The rhythm. Rhythm is, there are certain sentences which might sound like sing-song. And everybody, I'm sure in school, they've heard their teachers say, don't say your nursery rhyme in a sing-song way. But certain things have to be done. Like the stories of the three little pigs, where the wolf comes and says, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. And the children love it because the children, when they hear their teacher saying, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house. So this is what is rhythm, that it is a little sing-song and it is effective in some stories. Next, inflection, the way you use your word. Are you going to come, Mary? So Mary, you're almost giving her an order. And then when you say Mary, and you raise that Mary, you're like sounding like you're questioning her. What's going on, Mary? So inflection is how you say a word, whether you lift it or you drop it. That is inflection. Mood, of course, is to create whatever the feeling of that story is. And pauses, extremely important. If there is one thing you need to learn, is to pause. When Vera Johnson took those people down those steps, I had to pause because I wanted you to imagine her on that 45th floor, taking her entire office. If I had said it so fast, it wouldn't even have made any sense. But if I pause, you can actually feel the fear and the struggle of her going down. So pause, and then of course, volume, whether you want to talk softly or loudly, depending on the situation and the story. So that is your delivery. And finally, if you use all of this, you are going to evoke the right emotions in the people. Your people the audience is going to be moved by the way you have told a story. Now, I think, Manish, I'm going to ask you at this time, just go back to the old slide, please. I'm going to ask you at this time if you've got 7 minutes left for me.
I have exactly 5 minutes.
You've got 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to just do a little story. And then you can just tell me in 2 minutes. I'll only take 3 minutes or part of it. Okay. So that you can tell if this story met all of these elements, what was missing in them. So let me go on very quickly. If your 18-year-old son or friend or niece or nephew did not come home all night, what would you do? Worry? Panic? Call a friend? Possibly all of it. And if you still got no answers, you would just have to wait to find out. And that is exactly what we did when our 18-year-old son, Nikhil, did not come home all night 25 years ago. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, after a restless night, we decided to get out of bed and go and have a cup of tea at 5:30 in the morning. Just then, we heard the front door open and Nikhil walk in. When we saw the blood on his shirt, we were shocked. His hair was all tousled, drooping shoulders. There was pain in his eyes, and his voice was tired. I began to tremble, but tried to keep calm and asked him, "What happened?" Nikhil collapsed on a sofa, and this is his story. Nikhil's 3 friends from the 6th grade at the Bishop School, Pune, were in Mumbai for a few days. They had just graduated from school and were getting ready for college. There was joy and laughter in their lives, and they couldn't get enough of each other. But one night, after a night out for dinner and the movies, when they were returning home, their auto was smashed into by a speeding car, and the auto toppled over. Rohit, who was sitting on the far right, flew out of the auto and got crushed under the weight of it. His head and neck caught under the iron bars. Rugved and Vikram, who were sitting in the middle, had a few injuries to their wrists and shoulders and decided to go home to their relatives. And Nikhil, who was on the far left with hardly a scratch or two, rushed to his friend Rohit to help him because he wouldn't or couldn't leave him alone. With the help of the auto driver and other people on the road, they managed to push the auto away. But Rohit was bleeding profusely and needed hospital attention. By now, the driver of the speeding car came to their rescue and offered to take the unconscious Rohit to a nearby hospital, the only hospital that would take accident cases. And Nikhil went along. The next few hours were a nightmare. Nikhil had to fill up forms, answer hundreds of police questions, get medicines and injections from the chemist. And then he had to go to a public booth and make that dreaded call to Rohit's parents. He sat outside the emergency, praying all night for a miracle to happen. But the doctors could not oblige. Rohit died in the early hours of the morning, and Nikhil lost his best friend. So, because of the shortage of time, I'm not going to complete this story. But this is a story, a true story, about my son and his friend. And it goes on to talk about what happens at the hospital, and then how Nikhil goes in the ambulance to Pune with his friend's body. And then when he goes to Pune for the funeral, and he reaches out to Rohit's father and says, "Can I help?" Rohit's father turned to him and did the most unexpected thing. He said to him, "Why did my son have to die? Why couldn't it be one of you?" And Nikhil had no answer. He came home that night extremely saddened, not only at losing his friend, but because his father had said to him, "I don't want to see you again." So friends, this is a sad story, a story that moves me even today. But it is a story of tremendous courage, friendship, and dignity. And I am so proud as a mother for what Nikhil did that night. And even today, 25 years later, I still worry, panic, and call a friend when Nikhil does not come home all night. Back to you, Toastmaster. Manish, I will just show, you can just show the last slide.
Yeah.
So, friends, storytelling really is the most powerful tool that you and I have to give our ideas, our thoughts into this world. So every time you go on stage, tell your story and share it with the world. Back to you, Manish. And thank you so much, everybody, for having me.
Manish, do you have time for question?
No, right now I can only take one question.
Okay, so I volunteer for it.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
Yeah, yeah, Mukta madam, actually, like I wanted to ask about like the plot. Like, if you can just explain in a maybe in 30 seconds, 1 minute about the plot again. Like sometimes I confuse with the plot. So if you can go to the slide and explain with the example, probably that will be helpful.
So
That's
your
my
plot,
question.
so your plot is your main idea. It's the main theme. So my plot was an accident happens is the plot. Okay. Now how I embellish it and what I put before or afterwards is the whole idea is your plot. It is like in one word, an accident takes place at night. Then who your characters are, your son, what is the setting, the location, what is the conflict, that the boy is injured, he is bleeding. So that is the conflict. What is the action that takes place afterwards, where the driver goes and Nikhil goes with him to the hospital. Those are all the actions. Okay, so your plot is just a simple idea. It is not a complex thing. So don't try and make your plot complex. Your plot is just one simple idea.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mukta. I'm again convinced about the iceberg piece. It's not about what you just see, but then whatever 1% what you see, there's 99% below, which really builds up to that 1%. Thank you very much. And let me go ahead and thank you very much, both of the speakers for today. And with this, let me share my screen and provide inputs about to all the. Just a minute. Okay, let me just.
Before that, Manish, can we take a photo and get everyone on cameras?
Of course, we all love photos.
My camera is
Cyril,
not working. I'll try to on.
come
Just
on,
my.
Virender.
No, it's not working. Okay, I'll try now.
MTM ki kasam.
I'm trying. It's some
So
problem
Ram,
with the
your
older
camera
laptop.
is inverted. Can you make it upright?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to it, so I'll try to
You
change
can
it.
just turn your phone or your.
It's I connected with the laptop. So,
Okay.
Can make the laptop like this, man.
okay.
Hey, he's actually done that. Amazing.
Wow. So guys,
Fantastic.
So Manish, there is a question that after a story, does it have to have a moral or a lesson? Not necessary, okay? Everything should not really end in a thing. It's just how you make people feel, and they can go away learning anything that they want to. They want to learn about courage, or they want to learn about helping somebody in need. It's up to them. Every story does not, you don't have to spell out a moral. So sorry, but there was.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much. You got it. I missed it.
so
Okay.
there are few more to switch on. Let's wait for 5 seconds if they're switching on, and then I'll ask the Zoom master to capture.
I don't know if the Zoom master has captured, but I captured.
Smile, guys.
Okay.
Back to you, Manish.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And let me now go back and share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let me share a lot of certificate of appreciation. One thing which I'm missing out in COVID is the hard copy of the certificates. Please. First and foremost, let me thank Toastmaster Animesh Mahapatra for your contribution. Brilliant work. Absolutely great inputs. Thank you, Mukta ma'am. Your inputs have been very valuable. Thank you. This is for the role players. Prem, first time we worked together. Brilliant. Love your efforts that you have taken to make this program a great success. Manish Radekar, of course, me. Sri Ram was the timer. Unfortunately, he couldn't join in. And then with this, I have, let me come back. Okay. And can you see my screen? So let me
Yeah.
also appreciate Toastmaster Gagan for taking this wonderful initiative. And I think he's really put Jan and Jeevan into area Jeevan, and Toastmasters District 98 is really thankful to him. And also let me appreciate Toastmaster Cyril, wonderful person, brilliant effort all across, and a great support in making area Jeevan really back on. With this, let me hand over the stage back to Toastmaster, the presiding officer, Toastmaster Gagan.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Manish. Thank you so much, Animation, Toastmaster Mukta. Thanks, wonderful session. We had a lot of information. We'll try to implement in our paths going forward. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining meeting. With this, I hand over stage back to the Secretary Dams. Toastmaster Prem.
Thank you, Toastmaster Gagan. We are extremely blessed with the speeches today by Toastmaster Animesh and Mukta. Yeah, this took us into other dimension literally. And to be honest, I can say this is more than an education session. And yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks everyone for making presence and being energetic and active. Yeah, and I now bring the contest to a close. Good luck. Thank you.